There are a couple things that I want to talk about today. I picked up my Nag Hammadi library. I have not looked at this in years, and today I was inspired to do so, and I did. I was reading down through the Gospel of Truth, which is really amazing, and from there, I referred back and started looking in to see what the time period was. It is suspected that this was written between 140 and 180 CE or AD. Then it came to my awareness or my attention that it is considered to be different from or not included in the canonical scriptures. And then I was like, what does that mean exactly? Canonical, what does that mean? So I start looking it up, and of course it refers to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, those that are included in the New Testament. But I looked up the word canon. What does that mean? What does canon mean? So, as stated by different definitions, different dictionaries, it is the word that means ecclesiastical rule or law enacted by a council or other authority. Another definition said a disciplinary decree of a council or Roman pontiffs. Okay. Well, that makes sense, because who ruled at that time? The time that the Bible was gathered. Right. So in other videos, I have stated that those who crucified Christ, the same people in power that had the power to crucify the living embodiment of the message of love that is God, were the same ones who had the authority to dictate what was to be included and what would be excluded from the book we call the Bible. Well, because canon, C-A-N-O-N, sounds so similar to Cain, and the story of Cain and Abel kept reiterating in my mind, that set me off on a tangent to look into the story of Cain and Abel, and I had heard for quite some time that these were reversed. We also, there is the thought that Enlil and Enki from the Sumerian texts, who were offspring of, I'm going to say Marduk, not sure what label you want to give that godlike figure. So their father, so the two sons were Enlil and Enki, and they were at odds with each other according to Sumerian texts, because one of them sided with humanity and one of them sided against humanity. So one of them wanted humanity to be a slave race, to do their bidding, and one of the brothers wanted to include the human race in a kind of galactic family. I'm going to say galactic family. That is the story. And we have a biblical story about Cain and Abel. And I had heard it said many times that the brothers were reversed. So as I read that story, this article regarding the reverse of these characters, it was breaking down the words in the Hebrew context and what they mean. So the one who was labeled Cain, that word for his name meant of great character. But in our Christian dogmas, Cain is labeled the bad guy, right? Who killed his brother Abel. Okay. Abel, coming from, and I do remember this word Havel, H-A-V-E-L, Havel, because it sounds so much like Abel. in the Hebrew context means vanity, to be empty of character. Okay. Now, listen. All these words just mean what they mean to someone, okay? To be empty. Well, that could be, you could take that any way you want, but according to this article that I read, it meant vanity. I'm going to say to be empty of a higher level of consciousness, so spiritual, okay? To be empty and devoid of spirit or godly connection, meaning to be more connected with the things of the world, okay? So if we look at that, and this article also stated that in the original, when you look at the original translation from Hebrew text, there are pieces missing. So the original Hebrew said that Cain said to his brother Abel that he was speaking with his brother and said, let us go to the plain, let us go to the field. So it was as if they were going to go there for a conversation. Okay. Some things I want to state here are there are so many pieces missing from this story. Who the heck knows? We don't know how long they were away. We don't know what transpired while they were gone. All we know is the next thing that is cited about this story is that Cain slew his brother Abel. We don't know why. But what this person writing this article had stated was that Cain was the firstborn, that Cain and Abel were actually twins, and he cited reasons why he believes that is the case, and it made sense, common sense. So that these two brothers were actually twins, and Cain was the firstborn, and so favored as the elder son. That's a patriarchal thing. We know that exists. Okay. So what may have transpired? So then later in the text it says that Cain gave a sacrifice of the earth, of the crops that he grew. He gave this to the Lord as a sacrifice, and the Abel gave, I don't know, some type of meat animal as his sacrifice, and the Abel's sacrifice was favored by God more. This is the story. This is the story. Huge issues with parts of that already, gonna tell you, because again, we're talking about the spilling of blood. Okay. Huge chunks missing from this story. So then after this sacrifice took place, and that, the Lord was more satisfied with Abel's sacrifice, whatever, the two brothers go out into the field together, and whatever transpires out there, Cain slays his brother. I don't know. Further than to say what I do know. What I do know is sacrifice is not of God. Sacrifice is a psychological program that keeps us beholden to someone other than who is truly God, and that is the Christ within. The Christ within does not require any sacrifice of us at all. And that is as close as we can, from a mental place, understand God. The most loving, peaceful, perfect, harmonious aspect of what we really are is the divine offspring of God, the divine birthing from God's source, infinite creator. Every time we buy into this belief system that we need to sacrifice anything for God, we are reinforcing and accepting the idea that God is outside of us, is somehow outside of ourselves. That is not true. Everything is happening within God. We are all connected within God. God is not separate from us in any way. We are not separate from God. So if we feel like we must strive and sacrifice and crucify ourselves, martyr ourselves in the name of God, we're kind of missing the mark. I would say being true to ourselves, being the most loving that we can be, that is how you pay homage to God. Okay. Being God in the world is how we show our appreciation to our Creator. And then you must know the attributes of God in order to be God in the world. Wasn't that the whole mission of Jesus the Christ? Was to be God in a body in the world, to be the perfect example of the loving message of God. This same call is given to each and every one of us. Having said that, there is a balance between being true to Christ within us and being true in the sense of nurturing and serving others. Okay? If we have to give up or sacrifice something, if it feels like a sacrifice or a loss, if it feels like it's going to put us in a place of lack, don't do it. Because you're at a level where that's going to feel like a sacrifice. That is not going to serve you well. It is wonderful to give. It is wonderful to nurture others. It is wonderful to serve others. It cannot be done from a place of producing a sense of lack or loss within yourself, because now you are actually just creating more angst and resentment. So it is better to live true to yourself and give what you can, what feels good to give, than it is to give what feels like you are now depleting yourself, whether it be financially, energetically. Okay? So there is a balance that is necessary. Once we find that place of balance, we can learn continuously within our comfort level. Guilt, the perpetuation of guilt, is a spiritual delayer. So anything we do to perpetuate, reinforce, to continue this process of guilt, judgment, sacrifice, is not aiding ourselves nor the world. Meaning all of us as a whole, collective, when I say it in that sense. Okay, there was something in this text that I needed to speak on. So in this gospel of truth, it speaks much about the fog, the forgetfulness, the fall, as the fall from grace is forgetting that you are God operating within this space of material form. The fall is forgetting that is your truth. So this speaks of it as an error that brought about anguish and terror, and the anguish grew solid like a fog, so that no one was able to see. For this reason, error became powerful. It worked on its own matter foolishly. Not having known the truth, it set about with a creation, preparing with power and beauty the substitute for truth. Sorry. I'm gonna pause 1 second. I had a call coming in and that was really distracting for me. Sorry about that. Okay. And then it goes on to speak about oblivion. This created a type of oblivion where we became oblivious to that which we are, meaning the children of God, the emanation of God. I can't claim this, okay? David Icke, if you want to look him up, I think it's spelled I-C-K-E, guy from the UK, coined this phrase, and it is a point of attention. We are a point of attention, okay, of God. So this right here, this body, this aspect is a point of attention, and there are more than 8 billion plus points of attention of God operating on this planet, okay? So this oblivion allowed us to forget that we are a point of attention of God. So okay, and it says here, thus it had no root. It fell into a fog regarding the Father. Yeah. Okay. So there was something else here. I'm going to pause for a second and I'll be right back. I'm going to read this section or pieces of it only because it validates what I've said about our being God, a point of attention of God in this material form, in this material realm. Okay, the Father, the perfect one, the one who made the totality, within him is the totality, and of him the totality has need. Although he retained their perfection within him, which he did not give to the totality, the Father was not jealous. What jealousy indeed between himself and his members? Okay, and later it says, he retains within himself their perfection, granting it to them as a return to him and a perfectly unitary knowledge. It is he who fashioned the totality, and within him is the totality, and the totality was in need of him. Okay. So again, so it's just saying that everything, all things, including Jesus, are here to point the way back. Point the way back to where we never left. And this is a concept that's really, really strong in A Course in Miracles. You have never left your source. Your source is always, has always been. It is not possible for you to leave. It is only possible for you to believe that you did. Okay? So, and this goes on to say that in different words. But I wanted to come down here because it speaks of For this, the merciful one, the faithful one, Jesus, was patient in accepting sufferings until he took that book, since he knows that his death is life for many. Okay. It talks about the book taking on the heart of the living book. And I'm going to say the book is referring to a contract. I think of this vessel that is my body as my contract. This is my contract between my Father in heaven and this aspect that I am, the point of attention that I am of him. Okay? Of him, her, it. That. Of that. This vessel is my contract. This is why I don't believe I have the right to take my life early, to intentionally put myself, this vessel, meaning the self, the small self, the body, in harm's way. I don't have the right to intentionally do that because I have taken on a contract that I am not fully aware of. I'm not fully aware of what I agreed to do here. Okay? In this sense. Please keep your mind open as I'm speaking, because these are only words. These are labels. And the message I'm trying to communicate is more inclusive than what words can give. Okay? So the book he took on, I'm going to say, was a contract. And here's the point of all of this. If we can be misled, if we can be manipulated to believe that God is other than God is, if we can be influenced to believe that God is vengeful, jealous, wrathful, spiteful, vindictive, any of these things, it is harder for us to remember. It will stall or retard our growth in awareness of who we really are. So when this says, he was patient in accepting sufferings, he was patient in being the message of God, the embodiment of God, the message of love, throughout his life as Jesus the man. And it says, until he took that book, which that is the fulfilling of the contract. I have said many times that the crucifixion of Christ was not necessary. That is true. It could have gone a different way. Understand, it could have gone a different way. But when it became obvious that we were not going to hear the message, I mean, how many times did Jesus say, "Why can't you hear me? Why can't you hear me?" I mean, even the disciples who were right there with him didn't fully comprehend the message. So, the fulfilling of the contract was when the body was not even destroyed, but when the breath left the body. Okay, the contract was fulfilled. The contract, though, was not the death of the body. It was to live the embodiment of the message of love. And he did that all the way up until the crucifixion of the body. The crucifixion of the body was the end result of him living the message of love, not raising a hand against another, not fighting back physically when he had the power. And he did. He had immense power within this material realm. He had the power to manifest anything he wanted. He could have struck them down, those who wanted to crucify him. He could have struck them down with a snap of his finger. But he didn't, because he was here to give an example of God, what this might look like. So you and I could free ourselves of the oblivion that has come like this dense fog across our awareness. That's why it said that his death is life for many. It is not the death of the body. It is that by not raising a hand, even with the power that he had, he was showing us who God is. He was reminding us of what we really are. He was saying, I will show you that truth needs no defense. I will show you that life exists. That life is. That the death of a body does not stop life. I will show you that I will stand for what is right, what is love, what is Christ, even unto the death of this body that you all think is so real. I will show you that you are so much more than what you can see. You are so much more than what you can perceive of. And only by beginning to understand that you are so much greater than what your mind tells you will you begin to taste truth. In peace and love, may you be blessed.